Welcome to the esynergy podcast, conversations that cut through the hype and get to what works. I'm Grant Ongers, the head of security practice, and in each episode, we'll sit down with leaders to hear their unfiltered stories, the lessons hidden in both successes and failures, and the practical steps that turn big ideas into real impact. Today, I'm joined by Ravneet Shah, the CTO at Allica Bank. We'll explore what it takes to be the CTO of the fastest growing fintech in the UK, and how you go about ensuring that security has the focus it needs through that growth. This isn't just about technology or trends, it's about the people behind them, the choices they make, and the insights you can take into your own work. So let's dive in.
Thanks, Grant. It's a pleasure to be here.
Very good. So I know that you and I have talked a little bit about this, Ravneet, but can you tell our listeners a little bit about the journey that went from being a lead dev within Allica to the CTO? What was that like?
I would say if I have to define it in one word, it was challenging. It was never easy, but we'll tell a story about how it started. So I joined Allica as a lead developer. I was introduced to a technology that I did not know before, but I actually dived into the challenge to improve it going forward. So I tried doing my best. So I had learned a lot of best practices in my previous roles, which I tried to adopt at Allica. That didn't work. So I think the technology was quite legacy. So I came up with the proposal that we should shift towards more modern tools and technologies within just to support and scale the business. My proposal, I would say, it was rejected 3 or 4 times, but one fine day I was asked to build the technology from the scratch. So with a very small team, I think back then as a lead, I had 4 devs who were trained and skilled in a different technology. And the technology that I chose to build was quite different. So they didn't have much experience. So I think it was just like starting from the scratch, building, learning, helping the team to learn on the new technology, trying different things, because all we know, when we have to build something from scratch, it never works in the first way. You need to find your way.
Try and try again.
Try and try again. And I think with that, it was a lot of motivation, dedication, hard work that went into it. So we were able to build the whole tech stack in less than 4-5 months. I guess that's where we actually went to. We were live in less than 4-5 months. And during that phase, I guess I got an opportunity to become a VP engineering. So although I was doing a lot of work already, because I was building the technology strategy as well, supporting the teams, building it, defining it, but I saw a different aspect of a senior leadership firsthand at that point of time. So obviously, when you become a senior or VP from a lead engineer, the expectations of the business changes as well, because you're seen as a different individual with different roles and responsibilities. You're not the one who's actually just fixing the technical problems. You need to think about the bigger picture. I think what actually helped was a lot of resiliency, actually. And as I became VP, I was given responsibility of the engineering team, software engineering. But over the time, I started leading the platform team as well. And if I think about my previous work experience, I have got experience in different sectors. So I started my career in telecom, moved to data, then insurance, financial services. So I had a quite broad technical skill set in terms of programming language. So at some point of time, I was doing some networking, big data as well. So actually that everything helped. And then I guess leading platform team, learning the cloud. When I joined Allica, I'd worked on AWS before, GCP, but never worked on Azure. So that was a kind of upskilling myself, understanding what are the processes, what does it entail, how do we actually build the architecture. So I started leading the platform team. So I think within 9 to 10 months, I was promoted to a CTO. And over the time, the responsibility broadened. So led the data team as well at Allica. And most recently, I've been leading security and IT ops team as well. That's new addition. I think what actually helped was like everything didn't happen in one single day. As I was going through my journey, so the role changed over the time.
Yep.
So it gave me an opportunity to upskill myself as well. So otherwise, probably I would have drowned in the amount of work that I had to handle in one single day.
So I mean, one of the stories that was told to me by one of the C-suite in Allica was that no matter when they were asked, no matter what question was asked, whether it was at the top level of the technology stack or the leadership in technology stack, or the bottom end about how something worked, before you became CTO, the question always ended up in your inbox, and you always end up being the one answering it. Now, going from a very technical CTO, a very technical person, it's very unusual to have very technical CTOs nowadays. They tend to be very business oriented. You talked about becoming VP of engineering, how that changed, the expectations of business changed. But you are still keeping up with the tech as well, which, I mean, do you sleep, Ravneet? Like, I need to know.
No, I think it's just like scheduling your day. I think it's a lot of discipline. I do sleep. I mean, like, I think that's very important
Yep.
because if you're not well rested, you can't really contribute to the business as well, to even to the business and the technology strategy. But I do keep up with my upskilling. I'll tell you, when I started working with Santander, that was in 2015, 16, something around that. I used to travel from Birmingham to Milton Keynes, and that was a journey like 1.5 hours each way.
And it's one train, so you're
One
staying on
train, yeah, one train. And I made a commitment to myself that I'll spend that time reading and learning, upskilling myself, and broaden my technical knowledge. And I did that for like 1.5 years or 2 years, and I think that actually helped. And I've carried that habit now. So even if I try to, I mean, like things are much easier with Gen AI these days. You actually go and search for what you want to know. But that continuity in understanding what's coming, what's new technology that's growing, what are the challenges, diving deep into what are the challenges that my teams are facing, has actually helped keeping up the technical knowledge. But I would say, like, over the last couple of years, it's not just the technical knowledge that I've gained. It's also about like regulatory expectations. What is the regulatory framework say? I don't know, like how many times I've gone through the EBA guidelines or the FCA PRA documentation supervisory statements. It's not easy. I mean, like that's reading technical books is much easier for me, and understanding the regulations, it's harder. But I think that's kind of like a habit that I had throughout my career. So I think that really helped.
Yeah, I do feel that regulatory guidance is often more complicated than the regulations themselves are, and technical things are much easier to learn and read.
I think it's also about like you need to translate them into more pragmatic way as well for the size of the organization, what is applicable to you, understanding, and there's quite a difference between like a technical person talking versus a business person talking because they talk in different languages. I remember like probably the first time I went to a board, and the question I was asked is like, what is the risk involved in it? So it was I would come with technology risk, but now I think I look risk in a much broader perspective than just like, okay, what is the technical risk? We've gone through the architectural patterns, architectural risks, but need to think beyond that.
Okay. So, I mean, that actually is a really good segue into my next question. So Allica is the fastest growing startup in Europe and the fastest growing fintech in the UK, as I mentioned earlier. With that scale, with that growth, comes a lot of additional things. What are the things that you expect to see happening from a security perspective? What are you most concerned about with that growth?
I think, I guess, with Allica, I have seen the growth because when I actually started working, I was the first lead backend engineer who joined the team, and I had to build my team. Like we was like in 6 months we were like 4 people, and I've seen. And then eventually, when I became VP, I got the responsibility of mobile and web, a team of 10, and 10 to 30, 30 to 50, 50 to 100. We are less than 200 now in tech. Obviously, your processes needs to change from technology perspective, but security is the same thing. Like if you're a team of like 40 people or an organization of 40 colleagues, your security team is for like 1 or 2 person. You know everyone, and you know, okay, who's doing what, but the processes, the guardrails, the controls needs to evolve, and it's very difficult to have everything in your head. So you need to actually build the processes to understand when we've got like 22 product squads, as we call them, single-threaded teams that are working in parallel, building products, building product increments, deploying to production. So, and if you say like everybody goes to the security team with their solution, I think the security team will be drowned. But you need to have a process in place where you're actually understanding the security risks. We have done quite a lot of things just to upskill colleagues with the security requirements. It's not just the security team, it's just like even the developers, how they train themselves, understanding what security risks they need to consider. Do we review them? Do we assess the security risks when we are actually building the product increment? How are we evolving product development by bringing security to shift left? So I think these things, obviously, you don't know things when you start with it, but I think it's just like security is curiosity for me, as in like, okay, what can go wrong, and what preventive controls do you need to put in place if you want to go live with this? I think that's a mindset, a curious mindset that needs to be developed. But yeah.
So you basically described Adam Shostak's like the 4-question framework for threat modeling. Step 1 being, what are we building?
Yeah.
Obviously, that's key to every developer and every development team. And then that curiosity comes into the second question is, what could go wrong? Like, what can go wrong with the thing that we're currently building? And then you mentioned the controls. That is the third question, which is all about, what are we going to do to prevent those things from going wrong? Or if those things go wrong, how do we, balance that out? How do we make sure that it's the effects are not as bad?
What I also feel like probably over the last few years, I feel there's more conversations around security as well. People understand. I remember like in olden days, developer wouldn't know what are the security requirements, how things are deployed. Now with a lot of awareness as well around people sharing more their challenges, what are the security threats that we are experiencing. I think that helps. There are so many tools available that actually surfaces the problems that you might have. I think that definitely helps a lot as well.
So you've touched on tooling and training as being two key ways to do that. Obviously, there's tooling in the pipeline. There's very specific tooling around application security and around the potential flaws that might be introduced through code. I suppose you're also looking at third-party libraries to see which ones could be introducing issues there. What other things are you looking at from a security point of view in ensuring that development teams are doing things the right way?
In the product development lifecycle, so what we have done, we went through an exercise training all our engineers on a security modules. That was our first step when we started building it, because the first thing is you need to know, as in like, what are the risks and why they are risks. And there are great security modules that I think every developer should know and learn to build their knowledge. Then we follow a principle, security by design.
Yep.
So basically, when we actually design the solution, technical solution, we look into what are the different security risks, do a threat modeling exercise. And then probably then, I guess, when you start developing it, then your multiple tools are there in the pipelines itself, the SaaS tools. There are tools looking into the vulnerabilities of third parties, vulnerabilities of the containers running in production. Your pen test come into picture. You do a bit of red teaming exercise. I can talk a lot about the different processes that we are aware of. I think these are the few things, but then there's a key thing where you need a kind of continuous collaboration between the security team and the developers as well, where we are actually educating the development teams of the most recent threats that we are seeing, because every day we see, like most recently there has been so many npm supply chain attacks. Are we making our developers aware that this is coming? What kind of processes can we implement to mitigate it? I know, like, even the third parties, like, who build the SaaS DaaS tools, they're coming up with some new cool libraries to prevent these attacks. But I think the first and foremost is like awareness. Do people know that this is the risk? And then we build the process to mitigate those risks.
I love the fact that you talk about awareness, because it's developers who are writing code that you want to ensure that they're writing safe code that is secure. And it's the design. It's all about secure by design. It's all about threat modeling. It's great. What a lot of listeners might not realize, you mentioned red teaming. It's becoming a very, very popular, very sexy thing to do, but it's a thing that, well, for other organizations, it's a thing that regulated organizations regulated by the FCA, like Allica Bank, are required to do on occasion. Although right now you're going through a red teaming exercise, which perhaps a little bit of explanation of what red teaming is. So it starts with threat intelligence, which you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
So a team will figure out what are the potential threats that the bank might be facing. They'll look at the technology side of those threats, because obviously there's threats that are not just tech related. And then, without you being aware of what's happening, exactly what the scenarios are, well, okay, possibly you'll be aware, but the security team won't be, and nor will the rest of the organization. Some other third party is going to engage in malicious activities that mimic some of those threats, which is actually quite an interesting way of testing how prepared you really are.
So I think security is such a vast topic, and you try to put a lot of controls to protect the organization, but there hasn't been good ways of actually testing your defenses. And that's where I think red team exercise, it just helps, because even your penetration testing are very much scoped. And I think red team exercise is a good way to actually test your defenses and then also test your incident response system in place, because how you are responding to those attacks. I think we've done it previously as well, and we are doing it again. So I think it actually helps training our security colleagues as well, because if they don't know what kind of problems and we can experience, how would we put the controls against it? So that's definitely, I think it's quite a key part.
It's like having the actual events happen, so you know exactly where the gaps are, but without any of the really negative consequences of the real life effects.
Interestingly, we did a threat modeling exercise as well. Couple of years ago or a year ago, I guess. That was quite interesting. We did, like, we brought in an external party who sat with us, and then we walked through the whole application journey that we had. And I feel like that kind of collaborative exercises are also helpful to understand what the security threats are and how you can mitigate them. One thing is they educate the team, they create the awareness, but also actually helps preventing those security issues happening in the future as well.
So thank you, Ravneet, for sharing your story and the insights with us today. It's been incredible to hear some of the challenges, and it's good to see the decisions you've made on this journey along your way. What is the piece of technology advice that you wish every business leader understood sooner?
I think technology historically has been treated as a cost center. So I don't personally like being technology being called IT, which sits in a corner and just supports you with your request. So I think for the business leaders, it's just like the advice is like, consider technology as your strategic partner, because I don't think, like, you can do or evolve or scale the business without technology. So it's not like something that you can have or not have. You definitely use the technology so much, but if it's just like having a presence as a partner would definitely accelerate the business objectives, business goals, achieve the business goals. That's kind of like um, thinking that I have. And I mean, like, I've been in organizations where we think, okay, this is more of a cost center and we need them to do some part without people understanding what the requirements is, developers understanding what we need to build, what is the business requirement, very far away from customers. But most recently, most of the growth that we have seen is like where the businesses have actually used technology to serve the customers better, where they had uh, better integration with the technology team that actually helped the businesses. So I would say, like, probably uh, business leaders need to see the technology as an enabler rather than a cost center.
I like that approach because I mean it's self-explanatory. We're both in technology. Almost everybody uses tech nowadays. It is not just something you need. It's really an enabler, and I think that you're going to see that more so with the advent of AI and how we're using generative AI in businesses. So yeah, technology as an enabler for business.
I've seen like a few years ago where tech teams were more, okay, give me the Jira ticket, give me the task, and I'll complete it without actually understanding. So they need, like, we don't have architects and business BAs within the organization. So we operate in a way where, in more like a cross-functional squad, where
Hmm.
uh, people from disciplines come together and solve a problem. But having historically worked in environments where you were given like a Jira ticket and you just do what is written there, nothing, anything outside, and you as an engineer doesn't really contribute to, as in like what, how things should be done. So you're dictated. I think that is maybe that's not happening at Allica, I can say, but there are organizations where that mindsets still persist. But we've seen a lot of better solutions when engineers can actually contribute to the product requirements and help making the decision, as in like how we should be building, and are more close to the customer feedback. So I think that touches security as well.
Yeah.
Similarly, it's not security's job to actually identify or mitigate the security risks. Security is everybody's responsibility at the end of the day. If the people who are actually building the product, they need to be responsible for the security. So yes, you have experts who can actually help train,
Hmm.
provide some great insights, but people who are building the products, who are supporting the products, they need to be aware of like what are the different risks, how your product can be compromised, what is the security risk with it. And I think in every organization, we should start advocating it, advertising about why we are doing things, what we are doing, because sometimes security is considered as a burden, as in
Hmm.
like, okay, this is a requirement that we have to do, without understanding like why we are doing it. Most of the time it is basically, if we don't do it, it would have an impact, that is why we're doing it. So if we can translate it, help business understand that and what we need from it, why we are doing it, I think business can actually help shape a lot of requirements, even security requirements as well. um, that's something I think probably more awareness around security is required.
So what you said now is one of the key differences I've noticed working with teams at Allica. The teams who are building things understand why they're building it, not
Mhm.
just the thing. And I think that's also why they've taken to security concerns better as well, because they understand, or they want to understand, why that security issue is an issue. And as a result, they can actually find better solutions, better controls than possibly the ones that the security team themselves might come up with. So I think that's a brilliant approach, and it is one of the things that makes Allica very unique.